The big loser in this over the long run is going to be Syria. This is an enormous opportunity for Americans. Detroit has 10,000 empty, structurally sound houses. The mayor's trying to do an innovative sort of urban homesteading program there.
So Bill Clinton says send Syrian refugees to Detroit to help revive the once booming Motor City. But Donald Trump's saying we need to help jobless legal Americans and help bringing in refugees from terror hotspots. So who's got it right? Hi everybody, I'm Dagan McDowell in for Brenda Butner. This is Bulls and Bears. The Bulls and Bears this week, Gary B. Smith, Jonas Max Ferris, John Layfield, along with Gina Loudon and Danielle McLaughlin. Welcome everybody. Gary B., you say Donald Trump has it right.
He does, Dagan. Look, you know, in the discussion of immigrants taking jobs, you know, a lot of think tanks say, well, you know, they don't take our jobs because, you know, people wouldn't want to take, you know, jobs in landscaping and, you know, maintenance and, you know, maid service because they wouldn't want to get those low wages. And that's true. But in the case of Detroit, if you're probably right. The Syrian refugees would work at ultra low wages, probably way below minimum wage to get those jobs. But Trump is right. If we said, look, we're just going to do it with U.S. citizens and labor like that, Detroit would probably have to attract drive up wages in order to attract people to move. So in that case, he does have it right. There are jobs there. The question always is, are there jobs at the price people are willing to come? And I'll tell you what, since you know, Hillary wants all this government backing, that's a great place to put the extra money.
And Gina, the jobless rate in inner cities tends to be much higher than the national average. You look at a double-digit rate there. The poverty rate tends to be much higher, more than double the national rate. So why not give these jobs to Americans who need them in the cities?
Yeah, that's exactly right. And I live in San Diego, Dagan, and we've taken more of the refugees than any place else in the country. And as a result, we've seen many more homeless, many more of these tent cities. And it is, I would say, smudging the beautiful reputation that San Diego has to some degree. But not only that, people are really suffering. Let me tell you, I'm a mother of a child with a chronic disease. And when you go to hospitals now, the first thing that happens is they put your child in isolation so that the infectious disease team can come test them. And when I asked why, and this takes a long time, these children are isolated, when I asked them why, they said, because we have all of these refugees coming in, we don't know what foreign diseases there are, you mix that with all the illegals, and we really have a very costly, but also inhumane problem. That's isolation is for prisoners, not for children, and if Hillary is president, this is the new normal.
Danielle, who has it right, Bill Clinton or Donald Trump, on moving Syrian refugees to Detroit?
Bill Clinton has it right because this is who we are as a country. We brought in hundreds of thousands of Cuban refugees. We brought in hundreds of thousands of Vietnamese refugees. Since 9/11, we've brought in 800,000 refugees. So even if it's 65,000, as Hillary Clinton's suggesting, that's a real drop in the bucket. By the way, many of these people are doctors, lawyers, engineers. This notion that they're going to take low-paying jobs has no basis in fact. The other thing is, Detroit itself has 670,000 people in it, down from a peak in 1950 of 2 million. Detroit needs a tax base. These people can provide it.
John, but 90% of recent Middle Eastern refugees are on food stamps. 70% of them are on cash welfare. So they are relying on the government.
Yeah, and Bill Clinton was talking about low-paying jobs. He wasn't talking about going to work at the hospital as doctors, so that argument certainly doesn't hold water. And why in the world are we talking about putting 10,000 refugees in homes in Detroit when we have 50,000 vets that served our country that are homeless right now? This is absolutely preposterous. And the fact that we're doing something to help this refugee crisis, get this, I went on the United Nations Refugee Agency website right before the show. There are 65.3 million people that are displaced right now because of conflict and persecution worldwide. 21.3 million are refugees. 10 million are stateless. 33,972 per day are forced out of their homes because of conflict. When you're talking about dealing with 10,000, That is 99.95% are still out there. And why are we not dealing with Somalian refugees? There's 1.1 million there, 2.7 million in Afghanistan. This is merely a Band-Aid that we're doing out there to show the world that we're doing something. And by the way, we're spending $17,000 per refugee to get them here before they take social services. That's $170 million that we are spending on these 10,000 refugees while we leave our vets homeless.
Jonas?
Look, I don't think the refugees are besmirching the reputation of San Diego. San Diego's going to be classy with or without refugees. I will say that Detroit is a place with low housing prices and available home, to Bill Clinton's point, unlike San Diego, where that median home price is probably 20 times what it is in Detroit, Metro Detroit area. So that would make sense to use a place that's basically a shell of its former glory to put, if we're going to take in refugees, that's the place to send them, not to San Diego. As far as the overall economic impact, cities that were the areas that took a lot of refugees in the past, and I'm thinking about Miami with Cubans that came over, Mariel boat lift, are strong economies, stronger than they were when the refugees came over there, when that place was a burned out, not so great city. So you could actually make the case that you can improve a city and go from a decayed structure, a high unemployment area, into a better situation by taking in that refugees.
But can we not forget what has happened in Europe, Gary B? More than 1 million refugees just last year let into Germany, and Angela Merkel admits that she essentially invited terrorism into her country, one atrocity after another, whether it's sexual assaults, whether it's a pregnant woman being killed with a machete. And beyond that, we're going to concentrate all of these refugees in one area that is essentially multiculturalism, where they don't have to assimilate. And again, that's part of the problem that created terror in Europe.
I agree with you, Dagan. And what I find honestly a little annoying, with all due respect to Danielle, and welcome to the panel, is when someone falls back on the argument of that's who we are. First of all, I get the general premise. We take in immigrants, we take in refugees. That's all well and good. But when, we took those millions of people in early in the century into Ellis Island, we didn't go say, and here are some jobs for you. No, my great-grandparents had to earn their way, as did all the Asians that came in and all the Europeans that came in, and everyone else had to earn their way. It wasn't like, hey, go to this city and rebuild it, or go build the highways and stuff like that. People had to earn their way. We were welcoming to them, but there's this whole argument of that's who we are. That just drives me a little bit crazy. And Angela Merkel now is feeling that because Germany felt the same way, that they had to take them in, and now they're facing the repercussions.
Danielle?
Okay. To rebut a couple of your points. Number one, Angela Merkel took 1 million refugees. We're talking about 65,000. The way that we vet our refugees is much more considered than the way that Germany vets its refugees, not least because there are no land borders here for refugees to come to, number one. Number two, I'm a first-generation immigrant. I'm an immigrant. I have no expectation about handouts, and there's no reason to expect any of these Syrian refugees will feel the same way. So, frankly, I can see a parallel between
But that's the argument you're making, that they should go to Detroit because that's who we are. That's my issue.
Hey guys, Detroit is not a shanty town. Guys, we're acting like Detroit is some shanty town, that's some third world country right now. The average home price in Midtown Detroit has gone from $170,000 to $300,000 since 2013. It is part of a great revival right now. The president said he wouldn't let Detroit go bankrupt. It did. He said he wouldn't let GM go bankrupt. It did. They are coming back right now. And all this talk about Detroit, I'm begging Trump and some of these guys to actually go to Detroit and realize there's actually a city there that is starting to do quite well.
Well, that's where Donald Trump is today. Gentlemen, ladies, thank you so much. Caboodle on Business about 20 minutes from now. Look at who it is. EMAC in for Neil. Lizzie, what have you got?
Hey, Dagan. Trump tackling immigration, the Donald vowing to defund sanctuary cities as a new report shows they're ignoring government orders. So is it time to cut them off? Plus, disturbing new anti-American propaganda from Iran as we're hearing that the administration agreed to secret exemptions for Iran. So is this more proof the nuke deal was a bad deal? We're going to debate it at the bottom of the hour.
Thank you, Liz. We can't wait. Obamacare premiums skyrocketing, insurance companies bolting, and more than 2 million Americans left scrambling for health coverage. Now the government is proposing 14 new rules to try and fix it all. But Gina, you say, forget fixing it, we need to get rid of it.
We need to get rid of it. This is exactly what happens, Dagan, when the government dabbles in the human behavior, the choices we make as consumers in our daily lives. We need to let the free market flow. The problem is that we have someone applying for the job of president who has zero understanding of free market economics. And I think if we taught this more in our schools, economics and civics, more in our schools, perhaps the people could understand that competition really works and that it is the problem when the government meddles in that.
John, you have premium increases in states like Tennessee, Mississippi, Kentucky that are up to 62%. How are these little tweaks going to fix that?
They're not going to fix it. And what we're going to see is very much what you see in Europe. You're going to start seeing a cash medical service, which you're seeing right now in the United States as compared to an insurance medical service. And Gina, you may be right about the economic fallibility of these guys, but politically they were spot on. If you want to get something passed, you give something free to a bunch of people, and then you pass on the cost till later where you have different administrations have to worry about it. That's what they've done. Try taking something free away from a bunch of people. It's not very easy to do. The costs are coming up. This was only insurance reform. We need major health care reform. We've got to fix it because I don't think we're going to repeal it.
Gary Bay?
Well, I disagree with Gina on one point. Hillary Clinton certainly understands the free market based on the evidence of how much she got paid from Wall Street for some of the speeches she gave. But the point is, in medical care, look, I'm going to say, look, we have a free market. We've proven a free market can work in healthcare. It's in plastic surgery. A couple facts. Since 1992, medical care has gone up. The price of medical care, 118%. Price of physician services, 92%. Inflation rate, 64%. You know what plastic surgery prices have increased during that same time? 30%. It shows that the free market works. If people are able to out there and look at price and service and compare and contrast, they can come up with it. Unfortunately, this government doesn't want it for general health care, and that's a mistake.
And Danielle, higher cost, less choice is what people are getting.
I understand, Dagan. The thing is that we had problems with healthcare long before Obamacare. In 2012, before the main parts of the ACA were put into place, our per capita costs on healthcare spending were 50% higher than the United Kingdom, which has quote-unquote socialized medicine. We have three kinds of systems here. We have a purely government system with the VA. We have the sort of new market-based systems with these with the exchanges, and then we have a sort of a mixture with private healthcare as it relates to people who have jobs and who have their employers pay for it. Problem is we have bankruptcy, and that's an enormous problem. You don't get that elsewhere in Europe.
Jonas, final word.
I'm going to go off Gina's point. It's actually our choices that are playing a role in the rising costs. I mean, our choices to have less children than we had in the past is why there's enough healthy young people to pay into a system. Our choices to eat more and be fatter than we were 30 years ago are why we consume more healthcare. Our choice to take drugs in lieu of healthcare choices, the choices to our health that we could make to not need those expensive drugs that are paid for by insurance, these are reasons why it goes up every year more than inflation that you can't fix magically whether the government gets out or gets in.
So that's why, and that final word would be, that's why the government's going to wind up telling you what to eat. Thanks, guys. Thanks, Gina. Thanks, Danielle. Good to see both of you ladies. Predictions. John, go.
Facebook took a bit of a hit with the SpaceX explosion, and Jonas, quit trying to friend me. I'm not accepting. I think Facebook stock is up 15% a year.
Gary B., your prediction.
Well, Dagan, based on Friday's report, we're not creating a lot of jobs. We are creating a lot of debt. American Express up 30% in a year.
Jonas, prediction.
I use Friendster. You know, when I was a tot, they didn't have index funds, but the Vanguard 500 VFINX index fund is the oldest one. It just had its 40th birthday. Still the best one, up 10% in a year.
And younger than you. Thanks for joining us.
We will end the sanctuary cities that have resulted in so many needless deaths. Cities that refuse to cooperate with federal authorities will not receive taxpayer dollars.
The Donald doubling down, promising illegal immigrants committing crimes that they will be kicked out, and the cities protecting them will see their federal funds cut off. Hi, everyone. I'm Elizabeth McDonald in for Neil Cavuto. We've got a new report showing sanctuary cities across the U.S. ignoring thousands of federal requests to turn over criminal illegal immigrants. Now, Trump's saying, you let them stay, we won't pay. To Charlie Gasparino, Julie Roginski, Caitlin Hury-Burns. We also have Gary Kaltbaum and Scott Martin. Now, Dagan McDowell doing her usual great job sub-hosting Bulls and Bears. We've got Charles Payne, Adam Lashinsky, and Ben Stein out this week. Let's get right to this story, though. Gary K., does Mr. Trump have it right?
Yeah, sure. And look, anything that disincentivizes more illegal immigration is good by me. We are at 11 million people for a reason. Everybody has turned a blind eye to it. It is about time something gets done. The costs are gargantuan, and there's something called the rule of law. 3 little words that's supposed to be followed that have not. This would be a good start.
So, Scott, should we cut off federal funds to sanctuary cities then?
Yeah, I mean, EMAC, to the degree that the cities are violating federal law, yes. And I agree with Gary Kay's point. The risk here is too high. And I think if you look at what these cities have done, if you look at some of the incidents we've had with ICE losing track of detainees, having illegal immigrants reoffend and commit other crimes after they've been released, is completely out of control. And if you're an illegal, you've already broken one law by coming over here illegally to begin with. Who's to say that they're not going to commit many more crimes as they already have been when they've come over here? Absolutely, those cities should be punished for allowing that to continue to happen.
All right, last year there was nearly 1 million at the border illegals coming in that had committed crimes. 1 in 5 convicted of at least one crime. Julie, but do you think Mr. Trump has it wrong?
Well, Mr. Trump does have it wrong, because the fact that we have federal government laws that don't get enforced all the time. Colorado legalized pot. The federal government hasn't. We're not cutting off their federal funds.
So that makes it right?
Yeah, it does make it right, and I'll tell you why. You should not have local law enforcement, and this is not coming from me. It's coming from people like the head of the NYPD, who runs the largest, safest large city in the country, saying essentially that we shouldn't have these people go in when they're trying to work with their communities and putting them in danger and at risk by saying, we're going to arrest you if we think you're here illegally, instead of trying to get them to focus on real crime that's going on.
But Charlie, that means we have 50 different sets of laws, or 50 different, whatever, how many sanctuary cities. But do you think there should be no federal funds for cities that are basically defying, immigration laws? Do you think they should cut that back?
We're never going to cut off federal funds to cities.
I know, we understand that, but that's not the question.
We have to. It is, because it's an impractical way of dealing with this issue. I mean, I think there are other ways to deal with it.
But do you think it should be cut off?
It's never going to happen.
All right.
I mean, do I think the world should be made a better place? Yes, but this will never happen. I mean, the real question is this: what can we force cities to do? Can the federal government go into cities and basically enforce the laws that the local jurisdictions won't do? And I think that's a better question, and it gets back to what you said. I mean, the NYPD doesn't want to start enforcing federal law. I mean, that's the bottom line. But that doesn't mean federal law shouldn't be enforced by border control agents or whatever.
Or ICE. Caitlin, there is a federal force. It's ICE that could be doing these, enforcing it, right? Go ahead.
It's a really controversial issue, especially on the campaign trail, right? I mean, Hillary Clinton has been supportive of these kinds of things. I mean, to your point, in a lot of cases, having a relationship with the community is better, better to have these people identify crimes in their areas and report them, and would be less inclined to do so. Donald Trump, of course, and lots of Republicans this cycle have been arguing against that. And so it really depends on what your approach is to undocumented immigrants while they're here. I think there needs to be some reform. I mean, what we saw in San Francisco, of course. So if there's some reform efforts, for sure. But this is a really polarizing issue.
All right, now, Kay, I want you to weigh in on this next video soundbite. You're never going to guess who also vowed to crack down on criminal illegal immigrants with the exact same policies that Donald Trump is talking about today. Watch this.
In the budget I will present to you, we will try to do more to speed the deportation of illegal aliens who are arrested for crimes. It is wrong and ultimately self-defeating for a nation of immigrants to permit the kind of abuse of our immigration laws we have seen in recent years.
All right, so let me also, just to point out, Julie, what else Bill Clinton said. He said he wanted to double down on deportation of illegal immigrants who have committed crimes. He also said take the jobs away from them, take the welfare benefits away from them, and wanted civil rights activist Barbara Jordan to head a commission to stop it. So what do you make of what Bill Clinton advocated?
Who made good on that promise? Barack Obama has deported more people than any other president.
Yeah, but why is Donald Trump being called a racist now?
Not,
hang on,
Nobody opposes deporting criminals, people who commit real crimes.
Why do we have sanctuary cities?
Wait a second. Stop. What ICE should be doing its job. They should be deporting them.
So the federal government under President Obama is not doing its job.
No, listen, Charlie.
Stop that.
Charlie,
you just said.
No, that's not what I'm. Let me clarify for you.
Please.
If you are here illegally and you commit a crime, as in you murder somebody. The NYPD living here in New York will arrest you. ICE will deport you.
Then how come Kate Steinle?
I got news for you. They will,
He said because this guy kept coming back across the border.
How come it keeps coming back? Because the Obama administration won't enforce the law.
Gary, come in. Gary,
deported more people than anybody else.
Hang on. Gary, come in here.
Listen, ICE just stated there's 172,000 criminal illegals here that they don't even know where they are. So all this talk about ICE getting the job done ain't happening. Right. And look, and let me just say another thing. Politics. When a Democrat says something, even if it's controversial, it's A-OK. If a Republican says something, they're racist. This has been going on forever when it comes to immigration, and all we've been seeing for years is flapping gums from both sides of the aisle, and we're stuck at 11 million and counting.
Okay, hang on, Scott. Come in here. What changed in the 20 years from Bill Clinton saying the exact same thing Donald Trump is advocating today, but people are blasting Donald Trump for his ideas? Go ahead.
Well, more illegals came over, and I think, EMAC, maybe the public, at least rhetoric, turned a little bit more in their favor, which, you know, Julie, I can't let you get away with the fact that Obama's had all these deportations because he slowed his roll in the last couple of years on that. I mean, Congress has tried to put these bills forth. They've tried to put these bills forth to get the spending or the spending for the sanctuary cities taken away, but they won't get it through because Obama's going to veto it.
What president deported more? Name one that supported more. Here's the reason that Donald Trump is being accused of what he's being accused of is not because of the criminals who are being deported. It is because at one point, as recently as today or yesterday, until he changes his mind the next 5 minutes, he wanted to deport everybody, including people who were born here, but he no longer thinks should be American citizens.
Kate Steinle is not an isolated incident.
All right, hang on. Hang on. Let's get back to the issue at hand, and that is deporting illegal immigrants. Caitlin, get back to that Clinton soundbite. All right, so the exact same ideas is what Bill Clinton is talking about. And to Charlie's point, you know, we have had people killed by illegal immigrants here, not to mention child abuse and rapes. So why is this a problem today when it wasn't back then? I mean, in terms of the response from Bill Clinton and Donald Trump now advocating it and getting criticized for his ideas.
I think it has everything to do with the tone and rhetoric. I mean, you saw lots of people from his Hispanic Leadership Council really supportive of a lot of the things that he said regarding his approach to immigration policy. But when it comes to the tone and tenor of the conversation, it's very different from what Democrats have been talking about. We saw that debate, too. It's not just Republicans. I mean, we saw Republicans take a more compassionate, you should say, approach.
Charlie, final word.
But you're also giving Clinton way too much credit. I mean, let's put it in historical context. That speech was given when, in 1994?
He gave the same ideas for about 3 years running.
It was during a massive boom in our economy. Clearly, we let a lot of people in during that time that shouldn't have been here, that came in illegally. No one really cared because the economy was booming. Fast forward to now, there is a reason why working class people don't like illegal immigration, because they see their wages.
Well, that's a good point. And by the way, I'm not giving Mr. Clinton credit. I'm just reporting what he said. Yeah. I appreciate that. Well, gang, that was a fiery one. Next up, did you see this?
More accusations against the Clinton Foundation. A new report saying Bill Clinton aides used taxpayer funds to subsidize the family's foundation and to support Hillary Clinton's private email server. Now, they deny it. Also, a separate report saying a foundation worker asked the State Department under Hillary's watch for special diplomatic passports, a big no-no. Well, now even some Clinton supporters are saying the Clinton family, including Chelsea, should sever all ties with their charity. Are they right or wrong? Hi, everybody. I'm David Aswood. Welcome to Forbes on Fox. Let's go in focus with Mike Kozanian, Rich Karlgaard, Sabrina Schaefer, Bill Baldwin, and Bruce Japsen. What do you think, Sabrina?
You know, it's so interesting, David, when you actually look at some of the deeper poll numbers, you found place like Pew Research found that more than 50% of Americans say that they actually know a lot about Hillary Clinton's policies. What people are uncomfortable with is sort of her trustworthiness, her honesty. And that's what's, you know, really at the heart of this whole controversy, is that there's so much blurring of the lines between her time in public office and her the Clinton Foundation, which is a $2 billion foundation, and their business dealings. That is what is getting getting a lot of voters really uncomfortable to support her in November.
And even appearance of conflict is something you're supposed to avoid in these circumstances. And Bruce, that's why even some of your liberal friends, like the New York Times editorial board, is saying the ties have to be cut. Achieving true distance, and I'm quoting from the Times, from the foundation is not only necessary to ensure its effectiveness, it is an ethical imperative for Mrs. Clinton. That's pretty strong stuff.
Well, the thing of it is, in about paragraph 3 of all these stories about the emails and the Clinton Foundation, they say that they did nothing illegal and so forth. And I realize that, you know, you're going to get investigations and all this other stuff. But the Clinton Foundation has done billions of dollars worth of good, and to wind it down quickly. Matter of fact, it did good for Trump because he gave him $100,000, and it's the only way we know he did any, or one of the only ways we know he did any charitable work, because he doesn't release his tax return.
Well, hold on a second. He's done other charitable work, particularly with the veterans, and particularly with the veterans. But Rich, let me go to another issue again. This may not be against the law, but it's the appearance of conflict of interest. This Politico article talking about how Bill Clinton used a lot of money from taxpayers, $16 million, for a president's fund, something that presidents are entitled to dip into after they're president, to pay off staff members of the Clinton Foundation. Politico was the one that came out with that story. Clinton has denied, by the way, an interesting fact of that story, that perhaps one of the servers that Hillary Clinton used was paid for by taxpayers. They say no GSA funding was ever used for a private email server anywhere. Sort of reminds me of what he said about Monica Lewinsky. I did not have sex with that woman anytime, you know?
Yeah, you know, viewers should know that this fund we're talking about was started in the 1950s to keep ex-presidents out of poverty. Harry Truman was living pretty close to the financial edge, and specifically to avoid presidents doing unseemly things. Well, Bill Clinton has used this fund to a fare thee well, far more than any other ex-president. 10 people, you know, are getting dipping into this. 10 staffers are getting funded from money that's supposed to go to Bill Clinton, and money is going to Bill Clinton. And then IT equipment like servers. So, yeah, is it technically illegal? I guess we'll find out. But it sure reeks of the Clintons just having this entitlement that is beyond any ex-president.
All right, there's another reek here, Mike, which is the reek of crony capitalism and extending overseas. There's a Swedish branch of the Clinton Foundation that the State Department didn't even know about. It was kind of like a shell office. We looked at their 990 form to find it here in Stockholm. No staff members there. It's used as a pass-through for Swedish companies that want to give money to the Clinton Foundation but don't want it to be publicized that much. And it adds up to a lot of money. $28 million went from the Swedish version of the Clinton Foundation to the U.S. version. Now, the thing about this all happened at a time when Swedish companies were being investigated for violating the Iranian embargo. Companies that were doing big business with Iran. And it was interesting. At about the same time they got all this money from the Swedish interests, they dropped the investigation at the State Department. Coincidence?
Is there any doubt, David, that the Clinton Foundation is about pay for play? Not in my mind. But as far as Hillary Clinton's election goes, the worst thing I think she could do at this point is to remove herself, her husband, and her daughter from ties, because that will therefore admit being tied to it previously when she was Secretary of State.
But there's all this information coming out now about that, Mike.
I think if she removes herself from this, it will admit that everything that she did while she was Secretary of State was unethical. I think it was, but it will just make that fact. I think what would be far more helpful was if the foundation started to give out more than 10% of its donations to charities. That would be something good.
By the way, you were the one who talked about pay for play a couple of weeks ago, so we should mention that. Bill, somebody mentioned the views of the American people, which are not insignificant. 66% of Americans believe that it's likely that the Clintons were using the Clinton Foundation to sell influence while Hillary was Secretary of State.
Well, I figured out that 34% of Americans don't follow the news. No, actually, perversely enough, I don't think the Clintons should sever ties to the foundation. I think that would just give an aura of legitimacy to the thing. It might make it look like it's somewhat honest charity. Far better that it be left the way it is as an overt pay to play. Next, what we need perhaps is a neon sign in the White House saying Lincoln bedroom for rent starting January 21st.
Well, at the very least, Sabrina, the Clinton Foundation is a very strange animal. It's kind of a hard to define thing. By the way, Mike mentioned 10% goes to charities, but they have a lot of internal operations, and that's why their expenses are so high, why their travel fees are $50 million a year, because a lot of their staff goes actually out to things. They were very proud of what they did in Haiti. They had a terrible earthquake in Haiti back in 2010. The Clinton State Department and the Clinton Foundation both teamed together to do operations to try to help. But it involved, again, these charges of crony capitalism. People like Hillary Clinton's brother was involved in some gold mine venture that never panned out. Cheryl Mills, who was the chief of staff for Hillary Clinton when she was Secretary of State, she was also on the board of the Clinton Foundation before and after she was chief of staff. She has a husband, or at least a partner, the father of her children, who's involved in ventures that were suggested in one email that we know to Hillary Clinton by Cheryl Mills that a group like his be involved in Haiti. And she said, great idea. Let's work towards solid proposal, maybe to Red Cross and Clinton Foundation, since they have unencumbered money. And that's the problem. I mean, you just can't follow a lot of this stuff.
Right, that's exactly it, David. And I think that's what a lot of the American people are responding to. You know, back to that survey research, we know that more than 50% of Americans have said now that they don't think that Hillary Clinton will change business as usual here in Washington. And I think that the foundation is a perfect example of that. They may be doing some good. I don't have enough information to say that they are not. But what is clear is that we don't really know how things are operating. And that's the thing that most Americans are responding to. They say, we want something to change here in Washington. This was supposed to be an outsider, non-establishment election, and here it is that we have, once again, Hillary Clinton leading in the polls.
Bruce, doesn't at least the appearance of conflict bother you in some of these cases?
No, I think when she's president, I mean, she will not be involved and he will not be involved, and I think that's happened.
But how do you know that? When she was Secretary of State, they claimed they wouldn't get involved, and they did.
Yeah, but
countries like Algeria were giving money that they shouldn't have given, and I mean, there were all sorts of bad things that happened with the Clinton Foundation that weren't supposed to happen when she was Secretary of State. What happens when she's president?
There's a lot of documented good that they've done with fighting AIDS, fighting malaria, and like over behind me is the city of Chicago. I know a little bit about pay for play, not personally, but you can't swing a dead cat here without hitting a governor or an alderman that's gone to jail over. I don't think it's
all right. Certainly, as far as Chicago goes, it seems like business as usual at the Clinton Foundation. This block continues with Eric Bowling and Cashing In.
It's our right as a sovereign nation to choose immigrants that we think are the likeliest to thrive and flourish and love us.
So deport the criminal aliens and welcome with open arms those immigrants who can help America thrive. Is he right or wrong? Hi, everyone. I'm Eric Bowling. Welcome to Cashing In. Our Cashing In crew this week, Mercedes Schlapp, Juan Williams, and Kristen Tate. Welcome, everybody. Now, Kristen, should we be choosing immigrants that will, as Trump says, thrive and love us?
Yes, we should be able to choose who comes into this country, of course. Of course, we want immigrants who are going to contribute to society instead of immigrants who will drain from our society. But unfortunately, this is kind of a moot point because the administration, and certainly a Clinton administration, has zero intention of following immigration law. Just last year, the Obama administration released 200,000 criminal illegal aliens onto U.S. soil. But back to the original question, Eric, as long as the welfare state is in place, we should absolutely be prioritizing self-sufficient immigrants. As Milton Friedman said, you can have an open border or you can have a welfare state, but you can't have both.
Okay, Juan, good luck taking the other side of that one, my man.
I don't think this is hard because guess what? I love America, and I know that the Statue of Liberty talks about taking in the wretched, those who have been thrown out in other countries. I know that we as Americans remember when Italians were viewed as less. And certainly when Jews, in the midst of the Holocaust, we had to push them back. And again, people said, no, we don't want those people. They're not the best. We find in America that we take people that have been rejected by others, and they come here and thrive, and they make us stronger, and they make our economy. This show's called Cashing In. Immigrants make America a stronger global economy.
Interesting. Now, Juan, Mercedes, I think Juan's talking about legal immigrants. I think Donald Trump was talking about illegal immigrants. Go ahead, Mercedes.
That's right, and I think that's the core issue, right? The core issue here is, are we going to have
a set of laws that are followed. And what has happened, Eric, is that we've seen the complacency. We have seen the fact that the Clinton, Obama administration clearly they've really just allowed this illegal immigration thing to become a norm in our society, where if you come in and as an illegal, visa overstay, you don't leave, really, chances are you're not going to be deported. Chances are you're not going to pay the penalties. And so I think that that's what has happened. Even for liberal pundits, they go out and they just get used to this idea of saying, yeah, okay, there's illegal immigrants here, and that's just fine. Well, it's not fine, because we do have a process, and we should honor and respect those legal immigrants who have gone through the process, followed the law, and have come to the United States, because it is true that immigrants, they make this country great, and it is part of that immigrant story that helps build this nation.
Again,
and so we want to be talking about it.
Sorry, Mercedes, but go ahead.
Sure.
The difference here between the legal immigrants and the illegal immigrants, I think all of us, well, I'm not speaking for everyone, but I would agree that we need much more immigration. I would even suggest we need double or triple the number of legal immigrants we allow into the country. It's this illegal problem that it's a growing problem.
You know, this is the problem with you, Eric. You're blowing me up here, because, I mean, I didn't expect to hear that from you. But, okay, I embrace you on this point. I will say that I think Donald Trump was talking about both legal and illegal. And in other countries, some countries, they give points for the wealthiest people, the best educated people, people who know they're going to have a job. But in America, what we've always talked about is either family reunification or giving haven to people who have been subject to, like, political oppression in other countries, and people who, in some cases, have been just excluded. I mean, because, you know, they're coming from dictatorships.
I don't understand why liberals are so opposed to the America First policy. What is so wrong with putting our citizens and their well-being first? I mean, the facts are the facts. 51% of immigrant families, that includes illegal and legal immigrants, use welfare. That is a far higher percentage than the percent of Native American families who rely on welfare. And even in illegal households, the use of welfare is higher than in normal American households. So we need to look at these facts. And I also don't like how liberals always make this a race issue. This has nothing to do with race, nothing to do with nationality. It's just about success.
So Juan, take this up. Kristen points out the amount of welfare, the amount of money, the amount of resources and assets that the illegal community in America eats up. I think the Center for Immigration Policy, I believe it was, came out with a number of $114 billion a year of welfare that illegal families take.
That's one side of the story, but there's another side to the ledger, which is that illegals, and again, we're just talking about illegals, not legal immigrants, to go back to Eric's point. Illegals oftentimes do not benefit from Social Security. They don't get their tax dollars back.
I gave you $114
No, it's more than that. But in fact,
number.
They never recapture in terms of services, benefits that they contribute to our country, because guess what? As they pay taxes, they get nothing in return.
What tax? Oh, hold on. Mercedes, I'll bring you in a second. But what taxes are the illegals paying? One, because
what do you mean? They're working.
Sales tax.
They're paying. Of course, they buy.
They're not paying. They're not paying federal income tax.
Yeah, they're paying all the normal taxes that everybody pays. But they're not getting any of the benefits.
You're talking about immigrants who are working. We want those folks. We want to make it easier for them to become legal. The problem is illegals who come in, they break our laws, and then they drain the system. They can get lots of welfare. They can get SNAP. They can use our medical system.
They're not allowed to get Obamacare.
They're not allowed to get.
Mercedes, go.
They're not allowed to get Obamacare, but Hillary Clinton has mentioned that in her first 100 days of office, they would be able to get. She's going to push for them to get Obamacare. So let's just start from there. But I want to say something here, because I think this is very important. You know, in our nation, we've gone to a point that obviously we have the 11 million illegals that are here. Yeah. This is due because we have because of the broken immigration system. And so I think to really start going after them and saying they're draining our system, I mean, they are also adding to our economy in a lot of ways as well. So I think it's a bit of both. I think it's a bit of Juan, it's a bit of Kristen, but I think that this is the opportunity to say, look, we know that this is what has happened. There needs to come to a point that we have in our responsibility to ensure that these illegals who are here are able to assimilate, learn English, pay taxes, pay back taxes. There's going to be penalties associated with coming to the country and breaking the law. End of story. And that's why it has to be dealt with sooner rather than later.
Well,
because
God bless
this
you, Mercedes. I think you're right. And
so
Mercedes,
long.
let me just say, Ronald Reagan to George W. Bush all have tried to pass immigration reform to level the playing field, to do what you're talking about. And who blocks it? Hardline Republicans who are anti-immigrant.
But part of it is because they don't. There isn't the sense of wanting to end the cycle of illegal immigration. We have to get to the point that the U.S. is not just putting out a welcome mat, sending out a signal that every time you come into this country and you have a visa overstay, that you're just welcome to stay and there's no penalty.
I think
we
Ronald.
have rules
Look, I'm
and
telling
laws,
you, I
and that
think
is why
good
I'm saying,
Republicans,
stop
Ronald
sending the
Reagan,
signal
George
out
W.
to the
Bush,
world.
wanted to put in place limits so that we could have this, but it's blocked constantly by hardline Republicans.
And Juan, they also said that undocumented workers should go to the back of the line, and they need to, and that was exactly what was part of George W. Bush's plan. So it is very clear.
So why was it blocked?
Well, I mean, because there was part of the because the fact that with comprehensive immigration reform, it was just very controversial, very divisive. With the Republicans,
can I just throw something in here? Because there was under all these the Democrats' proposals for immigration reform, there was a path to citizenship that was offered, and still, I think this. You can make the case for the economics. You can make the case for the taxes. Mercedes, you can make the case for welcoming more legal immigration here, but you also have to have that decision. Do you want to let the people who are here illegally that path, or make them leave and come back and do it?
Boy, the American people have spoken, Eric. It's like 75%.
Well, but this is the heart of the immigration issue. I'm going to give Kristen last thought.
Look, I don't think anyone is against immigrants coming into this country who are hard workers. Obviously, those people contribute to our society. The problem is there needs to be consequences for people who break our laws, and we have got to prioritize those who do this the legal way and the hard workers, and there's nothing wrong with that.
All right, we got to leave it right there. Coming up, Colin Kaepernick is at it again after... Yep, he did it again. Lots of vets not happy about pro football player Colin Kaepernick refusing to stand for the national anthem during military appreciation at Thursday's game. And he did it again, even after police groups voiced outrage after he sat during the anthem to protest police last week. Kaepernick says he will remain seated or on a knee for Black Lives Matter. Now, Mercedes, what's going on here?
Well, I have to say, this is heartbreaking to watch. I think for Kaepernick to just... I find it insulting action towards, especially for our military, who they sacrifice their lives to fight for our freedoms, so that he can live this very luxurious life, becoming a successful football player and living the American dream. And I have to tell you, sports figures are heroes for children, and I find that he just is so disappointing because of the fact that he won't stand up for America. And I understand he has the freedom to do what he wants to do. If he wants to sit, not participate, use this as a way to protest, that's fine. But at the same time, it just sends this message of really not appreciating the greatness of America.
Now, Juan, we have a right to protest, First Amendment, I get it. But, man, when you see an African-American military man singing the national anthem, he's risking his life for the country so that Colin Kaepernick can make $19 million.
A Fox News alert now. You are looking at live pictures in Detroit. Donald Trump just sitting down there, the Republican presidential nominee, making his case to African-American voters at a church there called Great Faith Ministries in Detroit. Mr. Trump just finishing up an interview with the Impact Network and its pastor there, who you're watching and looking at, Bishop Wayne T. Jackson, as we listen in.
They said, well, Impact has reach, and also Bishop Jackson is fair. And I want to be able to sit down with African Americans, not only here, but all over this country. But this country must be united. United. And originally it was stated that Mr. Trump would not have any words to say but a greeting. But Mr. Trump came prepared to say a greeting and a few words that he wants to say. Coming to Detroit, he feels like that it is important that he just don't sit down. And so, yes, he just don't sit down, that he wants to come and to just say a few words. And we said to him, now I want all the press and everybody to know, it was not scheduled to be that. He's going to come in and sit down and have service after the interview, and then he has to go and do his other business in the city of Detroit. But since Mr. Trump, a man wants to say a few words, we're going to allow him. Will we bring the podium out, please, while y'all sitting there? We want to ask you. He wants to come up, Mr. Trump. Will you come? And would you stand? Would you stand, Mr. Trump, again?
Thank you. Thank you very much. Thank you. That's so nice. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Thank you, sir.
Well, that's so nice. And Bishop Jackson, I want to thank you and Dr. Jackson. And you have some voice, I have to say. Incredible. And some spirit. Some spirit. True. Talent. Thank you. Well, I just wrote this the other day, knowing I'd be here, and I mean it from the heart. And I'd like to just read it, and I think you'll understand it maybe better than I do in certain ways. For centuries, the African American church has been the conscience of our country. So true. It's from the pews and pulpits and Christian teachings of black churches all across this land that the civil rights movement lifted up its soul and lifted up the soul of our nation. It's from these pews that our nation has been inspired toward a better moral character, a deeper concern for mankind, and spirit of charity and unity that binds us all together, and we are bound together, and I see that today. This has been an amazing day for me. The African American faith community has been one of God's greatest gifts to America and to its people. There is perhaps no action our leaders can take that would do more to heal our country and support our people than to provide a greater platform to the black churches and churchgoers. You do right every day by your community and your families. You raise children in the light of God. I will always support your church, always, and defend your right to worship. So important. I am here today to listen to your message, and I hope my presence here will also help your voice to reach new audiences in our country, and many of these audiences desperately need your spirit and your thought. I can tell you that. Christian faith is not the past, but the present and the future. Make it stronger. We'll make it stronger. And we'll open it up to great, great leaders like Pastor Jackson, Bishop Jackson, Dr. Jackson, and so many others, and so many others actually sitting here. Darrell Scott, we have, who's phenomenal, who's been with me for so long. Omarosa, who's actually a very nice person, but I don't want to say that, because I'll destroy her image by saying that, right? She's actually a very, very fine person and a pastor. And I just want to thank all of the folks. And there is somebody that's been very special to me, Dr. Ben Carson, who's been, stand up, Ben. Come here, come. Come here, Ben. This is a great man and a great guy. So as I prepare to campaign all across the nation and in every community, I will have an opportunity to lay out my plans for economic change, which will be so good for Detroit and so good for this community, because we're going to bring jobs back. I will have a chance, thank you, we'll bring them back. I'm taking them back from Mexico and everywhere else because they're gone. I will have a chance to discuss school choice, which is very important, and how to put every American on the ladder to success.
a great education, a great job. But today, I just want to let you know that I am here to listen to you, and I've been doing that. And we had a fantastic interview with Bishop Jackson. It was really an amazing interview. He's better than the people that do that professionally. I will tell you, it's true. It's true. It's true. He's better. And I didn't really know what I was getting myself into. I didn't know. Was this going to be nice? Was this going to be wild? He is a great gentleman and a very smart guy. I just hope you don't lose him to Hollywood. That's the only problem. And especially Dr. Jackson. She may be gone. Hollywood is calling. Look at all those television cameras back there. Now look at all the television cameras. I'm sorry to do that to you, Bishop, because, one of those things, right? Our nation is too divided. We talk past each other, not to each other, and those who seek office do not do enough to step into the community and learn what is going on. They don't know. They have no clue. I'm here today to learn so that we can together remedy injustice in any form, and so that we can also remedy economics so that the African American community can benefit economically through jobs and income and so many other different ways. Our political system has failed the people and works only to enrich itself. I want to reform that system so that it works for you, everybody in this room. I believe true reform can only come from outside the system. I really mean that. Being a businessman is much different than being a politician, because I understand what's happening. And we are going outside of the establishment. Becoming the nominee of the party of Abraham Lincoln. A lot of people don't realize that Abraham Lincoln, the great Abraham Lincoln, was a Republican. Has been the greatest honor of my life. It is on his legacy that I hope to build the future of the party, but more important, the future of the country and the community. I believe we need a civil rights agenda for our time. One that ensures the rights to a great education, so important, and the right to live in safety and in peace, and to have a really, really great job, a good paying job, and one that you love to go to every morning. And that can happen. We need to bring our companies back. It also means the right to have a government that protects our workers and fights, really fights, for our jobs. I want to help you build and rebuild Detroit, and we can do that, especially with people like Bishop Jackson and Dr. Jackson. I mean that. It's been an amazing experience. It's been an amazing experience. True. Nothing is more sad than when we sideline young black men with unfulfilled potential, tremendous potential. I met some people this morning that were incredible people, and they're looking for jobs. These are incredible people, young people. Our whole country loses out when we're unable to harness the brilliance and the energy of these folks. We're one nation. And when anyone hurts, we all hurt together. And that's so true. So true. We're all brothers and sisters, and we're all created by the same God. We must love each other and support each other, and we are in this all together. All together. I fully understand that the African American community has suffered from discrimination, and that there are many wrongs that must still be made right. They will be made right. I want to make America prosperous for everyone. I want to make this city the economic envy of the world. We can do that. We can do that again. Factories everywhere, new roads and bridges, new schools, especially schools, and new hope. I have been so greatly blessed, and in so many ways, with no greater blessing than my family. I've had a great family. Nothing would make me happier and more fulfilled than to use what I have learned in business and in traveling all over the world. I've sort of seen a lot. To bring the wealth and prosperity and opportunity to those who have not had these opportunities before, and that's many, many people in Detroit. When I see wages falling, people out of work, I know the hardships this inflicts, and I am determined to do something about it. I will do something about it. I do get things done, I will tell you. Some people have strengths. That's one of my, I get things done. I'm going to get things done for you. Please know this, for any who are hurting, things are going to turn around. Tomorrow will be better. It will be much better. Well, the pastor and I were talking about riding up the street, and we see all those closed stores and people sitting down on the sidewalk and no jobs and no activity. We'll get it turned around. We'll get it turned around, Pastor. Believe me. We're going to win again as a country, and we're going to win again for all of our people. I want to work with you to renew the bonds of trust between citizens and the bonds of faith that make our nation strong. America has been lifted out of many of its most difficult hours through the miracle of faith and through people like Bishop Jackson and Dr. Jackson. So important. People have no idea how important they are. Now, in these hard times for our country, let us turn again to our Christian heritage to lift up the soul of our nation. I am so deeply grateful to be here today, and it is my prayer that America of tomorrow, and I mean that the America of tomorrow will be one of unity, togetherness, and peace. And perhaps we can add the word prosperity. Okay, prosperity. I'd like to conclude with a passage from 1 John chapter 4. You know it. See, most groups I speak to don't know that, but we know it. If you want, we can say it together. No one has ever seen God, but if we love one another, God lives in us, and his love is made complete in us. And that's so true. Thank you very much. This has been such an honor. Thank you very much. Bishop, thank you, sir. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you, Bishop.
Donald Trump leaving the stage there at Great Faith Ministries in one of Detroit's roughest neighborhoods, delivering some prepared remarks there as he continues his minority outreach. Part of this will be an interview, if you will, with Wayne T. Jackson, the bishop there and the head of Impact Ministries, during his 5 or 10 minutes of remarks there to the church service, which were relatively informal. He talked primarily about two things: school choice and jobs, and now back to the bishop.
Israel. Great. And with this press, y'all, whenever you're, hold this for me, please. Whenever you're flying from coast to coast, I know you just came back from Mexico, and you'll be flying from city to city. There is an anointing. The anointing is the power of God. When the woman who had the issue of blood said that I can only touch the hem of Jesus' garment, I was made whole. Nothing else could help her but the power of God. It's going to be some times in your life that you're going to feel forsaken. You're going to feel down. But the anointing is going to lift you up.
I like that.
I prayed over this personally, and I fasted over it. And I want to just put this on you now.
you so much.
This is the Jewish Heritage Study Bible. And we have it especially for you, and we have one for your wife.
Thank you.
Because when things go down, you can study the Word of God. When things seem like it's almost impossible, you will read Mark 9:23, if thou canst believe.